Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Transformational Tuesday with Tasha. I am Tasha Scott. I'm your host for this journey, and we have been going through a book called Atomic Habits. Thank y'all so much for being on this journey with me. We are in week 14. Wow, can you believe it? Talk about consistency, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight is the power of consistency. Before I dive in, I want to say hello to everyone who is joining me either for the first time or if you are returning. Thank you so much. And if you are returning, you know that I love engagement. I love when you all give me interaction in the comment section because this is definitely a conversation tonight. And as always, I love seeing Sandra. You always come in here first, Sandra. Thank you for tuning in from South Carolina. And this subject is near and dear to my heart, y'all, because we're talking about the power of consistency. And this book, Atomic Habits, has been life changing for me. It was written by a gentleman named James Clear. And I don't even know how old the book is, but I've heard many people talk about it. And it's one of those books that I decided, you know what, this year I need to buckle down and read this book. And I'm the type of person where I love accountability. So as I was thinking about what can I do to add value, to add content, I thought having a book to be able to go through. So that's why I chose to do it in this format because we're going on this journey together and showing up every week, going over a chapter at a time is a great way to not just get good information, but to, in a way, have some accountability to how we can implement this. So tonight we're talking about chapter 14. And in this book, Mr. Clear, he breaks it down into 4 laws of behavior change. We're on the third law. The first law is make it easy. The second law is the first law is make it obvious. Make it obvious. The next law is, you know what? Let me grab my book here. Just so you know, this is in real time. The first law, make it obvious. The second one is make it attractive. And the third one, which is what we're on tonight, is make it easy. And he talked about in this book how habits don't have to be as challenging as we've made them. Good habits. When we want to form good habits, they don't have to be as challenging as we've made them. How many of y'all know sometimes we complicate the process? We make it hard because in a way we'd rather commit to things that don't take us in the way that we need them to take us. Sometimes it's easier to commit to things that it's just easier. It feels easier, but we've made the wrong things too easy. And I love in this how he's challenging us to stop procrastinating, just make it easy, make the good habits easy, and make the bad habits difficult. Right. And so when I was thinking about preparing for this, I was thinking about what can I share from my own life? What can I share in ways that I've had to make things easy and make things difficult and how I'm learning to apply this. One of the things I've been talking about lately has been my journey in becoming an entrepreneur. Do we have any entrepreneurs out here? If you are either in business, want to be in business, let me know in the comment section. And I want to use my own story as an example for how I've had to learn the power of consistency, how I've had to learn how to make good habits easier and make the bad habits difficult. I'm learning this and I'm telling y'all the process is amazing. So, my journey. So, here's the thing. In Maximized Growth, I do a lot of professional speaking. I do a lot of training. I do a lot of development. I go into organizations. I'm the one that's in the front of the room. I'm the one that everyone's looking at to be able to be the expert in the room. I do executive type coaching where I work one on one with people. So I have to do a lot of communicating. Now, I didn't show up like this. I didn't arrive like this. I have to tell you that there was a time in my life when I was younger that I was extremely shy, y'all. Extremely shy. People would ask my parents, does she even talk? Does she say anything? I was easily intimidated. I am an introvert. I am. I know how to function in what I do. But yeah, if you would have told that little girl that she'd be doing this today, I would not have believed you. But let me just say this. When it comes to, and I'm talking tonight about the power of consistency. One of the things that I had to learn, and you know what, let me just tell you how bad it was for me. This is just to give you context. I was in the military. I went into the Army Reserves when I graduated from high school. So I was 18 years old and I went to basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. This is how shy and how fearful I was. So if you're familiar with Fort Jackson, you know it is like the heat of the summer is torturous, right? So we had to do these trainings in basic training where we'd go when we'd sit in these classrooms and we'd have the whole, army fatigues on, the jacket, the t-shirt, the combat boots, all of that. And it's like extremely hot outside. So I was sitting in the classroom and terrified to just raise my hand and say that I needed to go to the bathroom. I'm being completely transparent with y'all, okay? I need y'all to understand how fearful I was back then. I was afraid to raise my hand and say that I had to go to the bathroom. And we had, because it was so hot, we had to drink a lot of water, right? So you know where I'm going with this. So sitting in the classroom, instead of just raising my hand and asking to go to the bathroom, I literally sat there and peed on myself because I was terrified to be able to open my mouth and say to them that I just need to go to the bathroom. I was terrified, y'all. And this is crazy to say this. It was easier to sit there and just do that versus mustering up the courage and the strength to just open my mouth and just say something. So I'm giving you context on how fearful I was back then. And so here we go, fast forward when it comes to business. I had some agreements, some unspoken agreements that I with myself that I had to break up with when I became an entrepreneur. Now there's been layers to this, y'all. It has not been an overnight process. But one of the things that I do as a profession, as a business, is I speak. I use my voice, right? And so the power of consistency, in order to overcome the fear, I had to, one, make a decision, make a commitment to myself, make an agreement with myself, break agreements that I made with myself, and basically show up. And so for me, showing up didn't look like some of the things that I do now. Like now, I have spoken on stages. I think, Sandra, you're on here. You and I met. I was flown to Lincoln, Nebraska. And Sandra, I don't know if you remember, there was probably about 1,000 women in that room for the conference that we were at. And that stage was pretty big. So that little girl who back then was afraid to speak up was on a big stage. And I do speaking, now I can't tell you how many people that I've spoken to, right? And so what did I have to do? I had to make a commitment. And the commitment was me saying yes. It wasn't saying yes to the 1,000 people at first. It was saying yes to me, yes to the dream, yes to the vision that I want, that I would do what I wanted to do. And that is become an entrepreneur, become a business owner. And so a lot of that meant that I had to just say yes to the most obvious step that was in front of me. And so back then, when I first started doing this, the most obvious step in front of me was I started a small group, and that small group had 3 people in it. That was the most obvious step in front of me. And so tonight I'm talking to you about the power of consistency because I've been in full-time business now for 20 years, about 20 plus years. And me saying yes to myself meant that I had to take some steps. I had to open my mouth. And at the time, it wasn't the 1,000 something people or countless people. It was the 3 people. It was the 3 people, me saying yes to, and I actually took them through a book, and it was a Miles Monroe book, and it was actually, I think I still have that book. It was the Principles and what is it? The Principles and Power of Vision. That's what it was. That was the book that I took those 3 ladies through. And The consistent part of it was because I made a commitment to myself to say yes, that I wanted to do this. I wanted to show up. I wanted to be the entrepreneur. I wanted to be the professional speaker. I had to commit to myself, and then I had to commit to them, and I had to keep showing up. So when I made the commitment, we did, I think it was like 6 weeks. When I made the commitment and I said yes, I didn't have the luxury of calling those ladies on week 2 or week 3 and saying, you know what, y'all, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this anymore. Are y'all following me? I was committed and it was bigger than me. And so that's what kept me showing up in the face of fear, scared. And I didn't even charge those ladies. This was a free small group that I did, that I started because I knew that I wanted to be on this journey to be a speaker, a trainer, a coach. But that's where I started when I first started doing all this. It was committing to myself and committing to those 3 ladies and consistently showing up every week to finish what I started. But how many times do we talk ourselves out of something and we say, it's too small, I'm not ready, it's not time, it's not convenient? Are y'all following me? When really what we should be doing is just committing to this, the thing that we said we were going to commit to, and consistently showing up when we say we're going to show up. Because when we can conquer that first hurdle, when we can conquer that first step, guess what? The power of consistency means that we'll be able to take the next step. And we can't even trip over, how is this going to work? How is this going to turn out? Until we commit to the first thing that we said. Now, in this case, I'm talking about my entrepreneurial journey, how I went from this scared, I was 18 or 19-year-old who couldn't even raise her hand to say she had to go to the bathroom, to now here I am. And I wish I could tell you that fear just went away completely. There's layers to this, y'all. Every level, you're going to face a different level of fear. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? So it's not that fear goes away. Here's what happens, y'all. This is the power of consistency. The power of consistency says, you know what? I was able to conquer that hurdle. So we're able to muster up the strength and our faith to be able to say, you know what? If I can do that, guess what? I can do this too. And I may feel like I'm starting over again, but guess what? I'm not, because I'm starting at another level. There's levels to this. And so, you know, tonight I'm not really going line by line or page by page in the book chapter, but I'm kind of sharing with you what my takeaways from this chapter was, chapter 14. And what he's talking about here is really the power of consistency, the power of repetition. How if we want to make our habits easier to commit to and easier to do, then we have to keep showing up and keep doing the things that we know to do, even when we're afraid, even when it's inconvenient, even when we're unsure of what the outcome is going to be. Are y'all following me? Sandra says, oh, yes, I have a similar strategy. I set myself up with unavoidable accountability. Mertice says, very true, new fears with each new level. And I was thinking about that today because in a way, I'm in a new space of life. Obviously, I'm not that 18 or 19-year-old anymore. I'm in a new level, a new season of life. And guess what? Fear. I have fear about certain things. I have, in some cases, even resistance. And one of the things that I was looking at today was my commitment to show up here. What I wasn't going to do was get on here and say, we're not having this tonight. And I'm sharing with you all the power of consistency, because when you can learn how to be consistent in one area of your life, guess what? It will train you how to be consistent in every other area of your life. and it'll help you to resist the urge of quitting before it's time. And so many times we do that. We stop right before we get the breakthrough, right before we get the clarity, right before we get the answer. We stop and talk ourselves out of things instead of being consistent and just pressing forward and pressing through. And sometimes we do that because again, we think it's too small. Nobody's going to want to hear it. Nobody's going to want to see it. Nobody's going to understand all those excuses that we've all said, right? Sandra says, I remember that first conference. Your imperfections at that event displayed your authenticity. Very powerful. I'm so glad you're saying that, Sandra, because you would know. Sandra was sitting in the audience and I was doing it afraid, shaking in my boots. I was called to be the MC of this women's conference. I think the second conference, I was the MC and the breakout session speaker. But that's the thing, y'all. We will be imperfect. We will. It's almost like we just need to embrace it. There will be imperfections, but it's not about being consistently perfect. It is about being consistent, period. So I want to ask you in your life, what is it that you have found that you need to show up stronger for? What is it for you? Is it your business? Is it your health? Is it a relationship? Is it a skill? What is it? What does that look like for you? That you say, you know what? I need to show up stronger. And what does stronger even look like? Sometimes showing up stronger just means that, you know what? I'm going to give myself permission to do it imperfectly and then show up again the next day and see what I can learn from it. To me, that's stronger. It's not perfect. So, what is it in your life that you need to develop some really good habits around? Mertice says business and exercise routine. I hear you, Mertice. Because y'all, here's the reality. At the end of the day, this is what I'm coming to understand and coming to learn is that we're all human beings. Every last one of us. We are all human beings. We all feel, we all get scared, we all have our victory moments, we all have setbacks. Every last one of us. And also, what happens is we're all guilty at some point in our lives of self sabotaging. And what we cannot afford to do anymore is to think that we're going to be rescued from something outside of us. What I'm coming to learn and understand is that what is more important is the commitment that I've made with myself. It's what am I thinking about myself? What am I feeling about myself? You know? And so when it comes to the power of consistency, one of the things I'm challenging myself in this season is to just be consistent and keep that vision in front of me of where I'm growing and where I'm going. Keep it in front of me for sure. But at the end of the day, pay attention when resistance shows up, when fear shows up. That's not the time that I need to stop and quit. If anything, it's the time that I need to just pause and evaluate what's going on. Where's this coming from? And a lot of times it's not from anything outside of me. A lot of times it's not from anything outside of me. A lot of times I stop the flow of consistency because I've second guessed myself, because I've doubted myself, because I have seen myself in a different light. And y'all know that when we allow doubt and fear and insecurity to be stronger than our belief system, our faith, then we start to see things not as they are, but as we perceive. Is this helping y'all tonight? Is this helping you? Is this reminding you of where you need to tighten up? I'll give you another example of the power of consistency. When I started doing this, one of the things that I realized, because we learned in one of these chapters about the law of the environmental design, and how we can really change our environments to be conducive to our habits. And we can position things in our environment. We can set our environments up in a way that will help us to be consistent, to help us to show up. So, one of the things that I started doing was I started taking those big post-it notes, and I keep a journal. I constantly keep a journal, and I've always done brain dumps in my journals. I've always just, every day just did a dump of my to-do list, my deadlines, of everything. But one of the things when we were talking about the environmental design, I started doing is I started putting these, taking it out of my journal and putting them on these big post-it notes. And I literally slapped it on the wall in my living room, not in my office, not in my bedroom, but in my living room. I live there, nobody else has to see it but me. And I started noticing that my productivity started increasing, y'all, because it was something about being visual. And that was part of my environmental design. It was something about seeing it in front of me. And I'm old school. I like to cross out things on my list. And at the beginning of every week, I literally would put it on the wall, week of whatever the week is, and put this list. And my productivity started increasing. Even my executive assistant, she was like, wow, you're on fire. And it was good. And then I noticed something. This is how I know that it was working, because today is Tuesday. Yesterday, I didn't do it. I had a really busy day yesterday, and I had every intention of putting that post-it note on the wall, and I didn't do it. And I noticed today I was like feeling like out of sorts. And I know that I have like deadlines coming up, and it's not that I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs, but I noticed that when I didn't have my list, it almost makes me feel lost. And so that's how I know that it's working, y'all, because of the consistency of me doing that. When I stopped the flow of consistency, it stopped my productivity. Are y'all following me? And here's the thing, that's not a bad awareness. That's not a bad thing to notice, because when we are aware, then all we got to do, y'all, is get back on track. And so, what I did right before I got on this call, I just put my post it note up there. I wrote out my list. I transferred what I had here onto the wall, and I'm back on track. What happens sometimes, though, and this is again talking about the power of consistency, when there's a break in flow, what happens is we'll beat ourselves up, and we'll talk about, or we'll start to feel bad, or we'll talk negative, and we'll have that self doubt, that negative talk, and it'll stop us. And then what happens is we'll continue in that. And now we've gotten way off track, and the further we go, the harder it is to come back. But what if we had a habit of, when we notice it, we address it? What if we started that? What if we had the habit of saying, you know what? The power of consistency for me is going to be this. I'm going to have the habits that I'm going to be consistent in. The moment that I see that I'm off track or something's off, I'm going to address it in the moment, instead of allowing myself to linger in negativity. And now I'm down the street, around the corner, all the way over there. And now I got to muster up all of this strength just to get back. What if we just started noticing right away and addressing things as they come up, instead of going into avoidance mode, or all of this other stuff? Are y'all following me? So, consistency is a powerful thing, y'all. It is a powerful thing. And if we're going to become the people that we know we're called to become, we have to literally increase our self-awareness and understand, what is it that's going to take me closer to who I need to be? And what is it that it's going to take me away from it? And increase our time of our reaction time. In other words, don't linger in the negativity. Don't beat yourselves up. Recover faster from your setbacks. Recover faster from the moments that maybe you weren't on that day. Recover faster and just get back on track in your consistency. In the book, he talks about commitment devices. I really like this because he says making a commitment means making a choice now. And that's what this all boils down to, y'all. It boils down to our choices. We all have the power to choose every moment of the day. And he says, when we're making a commitment, it means making a choice now to restrict your future actions and bad habits to keep you in alignment with your good habits. And that's what happens when we start to feel the resistance, we start to feel the negativity. What happens is we're not in alignment anymore. And that's where we have to pay attention. Okay, what got me out of alignment and what do I need to do to get back into alignment? That's literally how easy it can become. That's the power of consistency because we're training ourselves mentally, we're training ourselves. Physically, we're training ourselves. Emotionally, we're training ourselves to get back on track. That's what we're doing, y'all. That's how we can look at ourselves and say, wow, look how far I've come. I can literally say, look how far I've come in my productivity. Yeah, I may not have done it on Monday, but you know what? I'm getting right back on track. I'm getting right back in alignment. And I can look and see how far I've come from being that 18 or 19-year-old girl who was so full of fear to now it's not the same fear that I'm dealing with because I'm not the same person. I'm a different version of me. But now I have the tools so that when fear comes in a different form, now I know how to handle it because I'm being proactive. And again, I can recover faster. And something Sandra said on here, she said she used the word accountability. That's the other thing, y'all, when it comes to all of this. Don't try to do it yourself. That's the other part of this. The power of consistency means that we're going to go beyond ourselves and we're going to seek the right accountability. So that will help us too on the days that we feel like we're off track. We feel like we're not in alignment anymore because the right accountability will be able to check in on us and to check us. Right? So I encourage you to seek the proper accountability, whatever that looks like for you. Some of y'all, the accountability is going to be in a partner, in a spouse, or a friend, but sometimes that accountability can be in the systems that you have in place. You know, one example, one that someone taught me was like, this is a small example when it comes to paying bills. It's putting the due dates in the calendar. You know, I live by my Google Calendar. And so I put everything in there when I have appointments. I even have an assistant who helps me with my scheduling. So the assistant is a form of accountability. The Google Calendar is a form of accountability. So now I'm using technology to help me. And so there are tools and resources, y'all, whether it's a person or whether it's actually technology itself, that we can actually have accountability in place that will help us to be consistent in our efforts, in our goals, and our growth. And he says the best way to break a bad habit. So we've talked a lot about how to make it easier for us to commit to good habits, but a way that we can break up with these bad habits is to make everything that we don't want to do, everything that we don't want to become, everything that is taking us away from who we're supposed to be, make it so difficult that you literally have to on purpose say, you know what, I want to be wrong today. You know what, I want to be off today. I mean, it sounds so crazy to say that, but you have to make it so difficult that you literally have to on purpose willingly walk back into something. We should make it so difficult that we literally it's almost like we have lost our mind or something. I don't know. But make it so difficult that it is really hard for us to pick that habit up again. And some of us, it's going to be, and I'm just going to be honest, some of us, it might be something as simple as on social media, you might need to unfollow some people. You might need to block some people because every time you see their post, it's bringing up something in you that's taking you further away from the person that you want to be. Some of y'all may need to stop going to some things. I'm just being honest. Or some of y'all may need to call some people that maybe you've been afraid that they were going to hold you accountable for real, and say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to be better, and I could really use your help, you know? So it all boils down to choices, y'all. It literally just it boils down to choices. And the choice of the matter is, who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? What version of you do you want to show up in this season of your life? And guess what? Whoever that person is, the power of consistency is going to be the thing that helps you maintain that identity, to really commit to the good habits that will fuel that person, and it's going to fuel you towards growth. Other things that he says here, he talks about when the friction to do an action is more, the action becomes less desirable. And he said to ensure your good habit becomes a long term habit, you just have to keep re examining those choices that you're making. Life is a culmination of choices. You get to decide, my friends. That's how much power you have. That's how powerful you are. That's how powerful I am. I get to decide who I want to be. And so for me, this is non negotiable. It's non negotiable. There are some things that I just want to be, and there's some things that I don't want to be. And so I'm going to make it easier by having the accountability in place, by making my environment conducive for growth. But I'm also going to make it really difficult for me to slip back into bad habits and to be able to stick to my good habits. I want to thank y'all for being on this journey with me. And going back to what I shared about, the beginnings of me, leading up to, who would have thought that young girl, that 18 or 19-year-old girl, I can't remember how old I was back then, but I remember it happened. I remember being in basic training, and I remember just the fear that I had during that season of my life. And I know the journey that I've taken to get here. I'm not saying that I've arrived and I'm everything that I'm going to be. I'm on the journey right now. I'm growing. This is not an arrival point. This is a growth journey. And so for me, I am super excited about the potential, the possibilities of what could be. And so thank you for saying that, Sandra. So yeah, so there's things that I have to do to prepare. And there's also things that I have to do afraid. And there's things that I have to do because I committed to it. And because I have set things in place, not showing up for certain things that I've committed to is not an option. Canceling out on things like me saying, I'm going to do Transformational Tuesday with Tasha, it's not an option for me to cancel out and say, oh, I'm too scared or whatever. I'm committed to the growth. I'm committed to the process. And one of the things that I'm doing too right now is, I've been doing a lot of social media videos. I'm committed to really adding value on here with you on Tuesdays, but on my social media channels. And one of the things that I'm committed to doing is pouring and giving back to others, So my business model, Maximize Growth, I've done a lot of things. I started off working with individuals as a life coach, and doing things like that. And then it kind of evolved to where it went from life coaching to executive coaching to doing training and development inside of organizations. And that has taken off. And now I'm at a place where I want to go back and I want to, in addition to what I'm doing for organizations, see how can I help individuals, because I have people asking me a lot of times, how did you get started in business? How did you do this? How did you do that? How did you become confident when it comes to communicating, to speaking, all of those things? So I decided that I'm going to start reintroducing mastermind series back into my business model. And I actually have one coming up that actually starts next Thursday. And I'm doing this around Dr. John Maxwell's book, The 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. And this is a 10-week mastermind. And this book, Dr. Maxwell is a leadership guru, and he talks a lot about leadership, a lot about personal growth, but he is a communication expert. And I wanted to take this tool, this resource, to go through a mastermind, and it's going to be starting next Thursday on May 4th, and it's going to be from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. We're going to meet on Zoom, so it's not location dependent. It's going to be on Zoom virtually, and this is open up to anyone who wants to really improve their communication. One of the first laws that he talks about is the law of credibility, that when it comes to speaking, when it comes to communicating, when you're in business, when you're a professional, we have to learn how to be credible communicators, because a lot of times we can be talking at people and not talking with people. And every last one of us has a sphere of influence. And so that's just one of the laws. He has 16 that we're going to unpackage in this 10-week mastermind. So if that's something that you're interested in, just put a yes in the comments or inbox me on whatever platform you're watching. If you're on YouTube, just put yes in the comment. If you on all of them, just put yes in the comment, and I will inbox you the link and let you know more information and answer any questions. But I'm on a journey, y'all, to be consistent in growing and developing and pouring back and helping others. Because one of the things that I know is, if you're a leader, if you're an influencer, if you're doing anything and you say it's lonely at the top, then you're not doing something right. That we should always be giving back to others in some way through our gifts and our talents. And we should not second guess ourselves. And I'm talking to myself when I say this. We shouldn't second guess ourselves or doubt ourselves or think nobody wants our gifts, our talents, our abilities. You never know who's waiting on you. So I want to thank y'all for being a part of this journey with me and for showing up for you, because this takes time. This takes effort and energy for you to show up and be engaged. Even if you're watching the replay, let me know by putting hashtag replay in the comment section. And thank you so, so much for just being you. Thank you for being in this space with me as I'm on this journey to be me. And y'all, together, we're going to do some amazing things for sure. Thank you, Mertice. I'm excited about you being a part of the mastermind too. So y'all, that's our Transformational Tuesday with Tasha tonight. I didn't talk, well, I've kind of really just shared a lot of my takeaway, what I gathered or gleaned from the chapter in the book. And he was talking about how to make your good habits easy and how to make your bad habits difficult. But what I shared with you tonight is what really jumped off the page at me and really just spoke to me. And so that's what I wanted to communicate with you tonight. So thank you for being a part of this. Now, next week, we start the 4th law of behavior change, and that is make it satisfying. That's what we're going to be talking about next week. Make it satisfying. And chapter 15, he's going to talk about the cardinal rule of behavior change. So you don't want to miss it. We'll be back next week, 7 o'clock, Transformational Tuesdays with Tasha. Thank y'all so much. Sandra, Mertice, Mila, good to see you on here. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, if you're watching the replay, make sure to let me know, because I want to make sure to engage with you as well. All right, y'all, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much. And y'all have an amazing, consistent rest of the week. And I will see y'all next week. Bye.